into the Toyota Lounge for the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, powered by your Front Range Toyota dealerships. We got all four of us here today. A lot of hockey news over the 3-day weekend, and honestly, some of it a little bit before the 3-day weekend, to be honest with you. A lot of coaching changes in the NHL, both conference final series getting interesting,
Whoa.
the World Championships heating up.
And ending.
Yeah, you know, there was that. It is over. And then a lot of talk about elbows in the NHL.
I got two of them that look weird as shit.
You throwing them at people?
No, I just have deformities in my elbows.
By throwing them at people?
No. Jacob Trouba and I do not live on the same plane. I just think about elbows a lot because mine are weird.
Okay. Thinking about elbows so much is a weird thing to think about. I'm not going to lie.
It's the offseason, man. We all have a thing.
Fair enough, I guess. I wanted to start with the Jacob Trouba conversation just because I think it's one we've had a lot and we don't have to dig too far into these things. But where's the line of what is a suspendable play in the playoffs?
I think Brendan Gallagher had a very similar hit, and it was 5 games in the regular season. So it feels like the line was already established as recently as a few months ago.
Yep. And this conversation goes well beyond Trouba's elbow. Well, was it Kulikov that had the blindside hit the other in game 2? I think it was.
Yeah.
So, I understand it's the playoffs and, you know, some more stuff you get away with, and they're physically heavy play and Warriors and blah 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 blah. But at a certain point, you have to look out for the player's health, right? Like, you can't just let dudes start blowing up each other's heads with no repercussions.
There was a fine, Rudo.
Okay, yeah, sure. I'm sure Trouba's so upset that he had to pay $5,000.
Remember when Cale Makar was suspended for a playoff game?
I do remember that, yes.
I'm just saying.
I remember Nazem Kadri getting suspended for a series for a hit almost exactly like Kulikov's.
Yeah.
I just don't...
This is the real answer, man, is that nobody on Earth seems to know. I don't think George Peros wakes up on a day-to-day basis
and knows the rules
and has any idea what he's going to do that day. He looks at... it almost feels like they don't look at past precedent at all. They look at it completely in a vacuum and say, okay, well, there's this and only this.
Great. I hate that with every part of my being.
Yeah, I will say the one thing about the Trouba elbow is that it eventually got to his head. You could see that it kind of started a little bit in his back and kind of moved on up. And
my problem with the elbow is less the head contact and more that is illegal.
Well, that he's trying to do it.
Yeah,
he's reaching out to do it.
He gets torched, and his reaction is, "Well, I'm going to throw an elbow at him." Like, you're not allowed to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I won't devil's advocate. My bad.
You're fine. You're fine with devil's advocating because I think that does come into play a lot in the actual decisions that get made by the Department of Player Safety. But
yeah,
Eric, I want to hear on you from this one because obviously you're from an era where there was a lot more of a dude takes an elbow, you elbow a guy back type of situation. But is that where we're at in the NHL playoffs? Do the players have to police themselves here, or do you need more from the Department of Player Safety?
Here's what I'll say. I know a bunch of guys there, you know, Stefan Quintal, George. They're all good people. They're all smart people. I think they do need a little bit of a overhaul. Like, they got to fix it a little bit. I think there's just been a lot of complaints from, forget about us or fans, or there's been a lot of complaints from teams, right? You know, like, hey, I don't know anymore what is a suspendable offense. Or, you know, obviously there's a lot of intelligent people in there. But right now it's not coming out sometimes intelligently, right? If that makes sense. Does that make sense? So I just think that they just need to, I think, start fresh maybe. because it's always a precedent, But last year, I think you got to start fresh, and say this is what this is, right? This is what's next, As far as Trouba's concerned, no, I know. I mean, I saw a bunch on Twitter, like Mark Messier and everything. I mean, it's just a different era. I get that. Rudo and I talk about this all the time. I'm not like Neanderthal or whatever it is. It was just a different era back then.
Yeah.
Right. For me, Scott Stevens and it was just like, I loved it. I mean, to be honest, you got to remember, guys that are playing in that league are wired differently too. You know what I mean? You got to be wired differently to play in that league, or you can't play. So. It
seems like a lot of those guys got rewired because they had brain injuries.
No, that's what I'm saying.
From getting hit in the head.
That's why I'm going back to. I'm not saying. That's why Rudo. We talked about that one time. I'm not Neanderthal. I'm not. I'm all for the new rules. It's such a better game and it's faster, But there's still a physical aspect, and then there's also reactions. Here's what I'll say: who doesn't hit for the Avs? There's guys that don't hit. You'll never get suspended. You never freaking hit anyone. You know what I mean? So Jacob Trouba plays a physical game and he's on the edge, and if he doesn't play, then he's not effective. Does he cross the line? Exactly. And that's where he has to be careful and for example, again, he gets burned, and then he's just I like the fact that he's not quitting and everything, but no one goes out there tries to hurt someone. I'm telling you right now, no one does. Now, you got to be responsible for your actions as well, right? And that I'm all for that. That's what I'm saying. And that's where I do believe George and those guys, they got to go back to new precedents. You know what I mean?
He flares an elbow, and you could tell it's an instinctive reaction.
I know.
It's an instinctive reaction because he's never been held accountable in his career.
Suspended two less games because he wasn't trying to hurt someone, but he still did a thing that's illegal,
and avoidable.
And Megan made the great point earlier, which is really my point here with the Department of Player Safety. The rules can be whatever they want. If they decide tomorrow that elbows are legal and everyone can do them, I think they're stupid, but fine. That's the rule. Everyone knows it. You play to the rule. But when you're calling hits that look exactly the same, a 5-game suspension, sure, you do the NHL playoff math where 2 regular season games is 1 playoff game. Okay, Trouba should still have been suspended for 2 games then. Be consistent.
Or 3 if you round up.
Sure, whatever.
No, I'm not saying he should be. I'm just saying, some guys, we could look at the league right now, and like I said, we put a lot of guys in there that will never get suspended because they never put themselves out there because they're not physical guys. When you're a physical guy, there is a fine line, and I think he's got to be better at finding the line, you know what I mean? And I think the league has to be better at figuring out, like I was saying earlier, what it is, you know what I mean? And not be so inconsistent. And I know it's always repeat offender and that makes a difference in play. I get that. I think it just needs to be a little more black and white, and I think general managers, players will like that. Not do I think Jacob Trouba's trying to rip his head off? No. You know what I mean? It's a reaction. What's his name? Erod knows it too, and he sells it pretty good too. You know what I mean? That's a sale job right there.
Sure.
Because he lost the puck, and he's like, oh, God, I'm going to make it look bad, which is fine. That's trying to win. I mean, you're not cheating. You're not trying to win, right? You know what I mean? And when I say that, I mean that with all the respect in the world. But, yeah, I mean, he's got to be careful. He does live on the edge, but that's what makes him the player that he is. And I can tell you that today. And you're right. You got to be careful because players' health is at risk and very important. But 32 teams out of 32 would take him, for that.
Sure, they can all want him on their team, and that's all good and well. But
you're right.
You just desperetely wanted an Nazem Kadri who gets suspended all the time.
Yeah, you just can't hit guys in the head.
Naz has done a better job too at being a little more careful.
Well, and how do you think it has changed Kadri's behavior that he faced serious punishment that escalated throughout his career versus Jacob Trouba, who just gets this $5,000 fine treatment over and over.
But what I'm saying is, you're right. Listen, I was a culprit back then. Like, I did get suspended, And you got to remember, it was those new rules, a little bit of less hooking. You know what I mean? Like, again, we went from you could absolutely water ski, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, one way to another, you could go on a leash with your dog, you know what I mean? Like, rules. There's a big difference. So I had to adjust to it, and then I got suspended. And again, was I trying to hurt the guy? No, absolutely not. Do I regret the hit? Yes. But things happen fast out there, you know what I mean? And then you have to readjust yourself to play within, you know.
Well, and that's what we're
rules.
talking about because you readjusted, right?
Yeah, then it got me out of the league. I'm just kidding. But I'm just saying, it does. It is, you know, you have to. He has to be more careful, you know. Do I like the dog in him? Yeah, because that's what he brings, you know. But you don't want to hurt anyone. I don't think he's trying to hurt anyone. But eventually, if that connects, you will freaking kill someone, all right? You know what I mean? Like, well, even the natures. I mean, that one that he flew over. For me, I'm laughing, but it was like, oof, that could have been bad. That one,
Yeah,
way worse than that one. You know, like that one's like, the other one was like, whoa, like he's freaking coming at him. You know what I mean? Like.
I struggle with it because he is also their captain, and I think that he
Just
needs
won an
to
award
take
for that, by the
more
way.
leadership and accountability of his own actions. And just because it hasn't negatively affected his team in a big way yet doesn't mean that it wouldn't down the line. And I think especially when you wear that C on your chest, you have to play with a little more pride and represent your organization a bit better than this, because everything I hear about him, he's a terrific human being, and I don't doubt that for a second. But I'm kind of sick of the lack of repercussion, probably because he is a good character guy. I don't doubt that for a second. But there's a history there now. You know, this is different from Cale Makar even in the Seattle series where there was no history of this type of behavior. But now with Trouba, there is. And at some point, there has to be accountability, especially from your leadership. I think that it's a bad look for the organization to continue to just kind of quietly endorse this, because there aren't really severe consequences through this point. But I have this discussion around a lot of players in this position, and it comes down to when there are things like this, like I even think back to Cale Makar and Jeff Carter. I don't think Carter aimed to hurt Makar there, but he needed to take more ownership of his role in that play. And that's how I feel about Trouba a lot of the time. I don't think he's a bad person, but I'm sick of it.
Everybody else there's like a handful of guys, right? You have Trouba, you have Tom Wilson,
who has taken fewer hits like that for a reason, because he's been penalized.
and that's my point exactly, is even with all these guys that play physical hockey that maybe have that edge to their game, almost all of them have figured it out in a way to still play physical and not continually put yourself in situations where, oh, he hit this guy in the head, oh, he flared his elbow, oh, he did this, that, the other thing.
Gabe Landeskog has like 4 suspensions in his career.
Matt Tkachuk, same kind of, not quite as many as
He's
Gabe,
a good
but
leader too. Gabe,
but
no?
all
just
these
saying.
other guys have managed to figure it out, and Trouba seems to just keep getting away with it. I don't really understand
I don't
it,
disagree.
but-
It's crazy that Trouba just seems to be the one that dances between the raindrops.
Well, maybe you're right, you know, because he hasn't been. Has he been suspended yet or no?
I think he's been suspended before, but I feel like it was 2 games in season.
Well, here's what I'll say. That
Sounds like you would know. I would.
I don't actually know.
Again, not defend. I don't know the guy from Apple, so I am not defending the guy at all. All I'm saying is when you put yourself out there, when I say that is when you play that style of game, it will happen 20 years from now still, because shit happens out there. And I'm not saying it's okay. I'm saying it will happen again. And Gabe Landeskog, if he comes back, and it will happen to him again, because that's, again, it's just I'm not defending any guys. When you're out there, it happens so quick and it's so fast nowadays, and the guys are so solid, and the game is at such a high pace, and stuff will happen.
And
you know what I mean? It will happen, especially if you're a physical person.
This is why they
If you're
punish to
not.
history, though,
Exactly,
right? Because,
yeah.
hey, it happened once. Okay, weird
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
When it's happened 6 times,
No, I agree. But again, that's because he hasn't really paid the piper. Hey, Brad Marchand, you know what I mean? Like, man, how many times have you been? 8 times, I think. Brad Marchand.
Yeah.
8
He
times.
he went a really long time between them, and we talked about how he was reformed, and then
But no, that doesn't get out of you. Like,
he also
you're
has a
dog, you're
lot
dog.
of
Like, it just,
weird stuff on his
yeah,
record.
but that was the licking and the, you know, but you learn
the licking.
No, but it is. You learn to. He got punished for it, and then you learn to, like,
He really
holy
didn't.
shit, like, you know. But all I'm saying is, I'm not it does happen quick, and geez, you know.
Megan, what do we got?
I laughed because there's a suspension as recently as January of this year for elbowing 2 games.
Yeah.
So I don't even have, that just was the first thing to come up. And so I don't even know in totality what the suspension history looks like, just that as recently as January of this year, he elbowed a guy in the head.
What's up?
I don't understand.
I'm seeing 2016, 17 illegal check to the head, 2 games.
Yep.
Oh,
That's the only one.
Besides this year.
all right. And
He's got to stop doing that.
Yeah,
I don't.
How,
we could have distilled the entire
Stop.
conversation into
It's time to
Megan saying
stop.
you gotta stop doing that.
I know, but it will happen. I'm just telling you right now, it will happen again.
Yeah,
Because
of course
when
it will. He keeps
just-
doing it.
No, but even if he gets 10 games, it will happen again. Because he can't stop playing the way he plays. Because if he does, he'd be out of the league. He's not good
The
enough.
difference is if he gets a punishment that sends a message,
he'll
It might
stop.
make him learn. I agree.
then
That's what I
his
said.
instinct might stop being, I'm
Sure.
going to flare the elbow and I'll just wrap my arm around him and hold him instead.
And you'll take a 2-minute
I will
penalty
take
instead. Yeah.
just a normal, boring holding penalty instead of try to elbow this human in the head.
I don't know. I didn't think this conversation was going to go that long, but
No, that's okay. I mean,
the Department of Player Safety continues to
It's
disappoint me.
The most unifying force in all of hockey. Nobody is happy with DOPS.
Yeah, because I don't blame Truba for continuing to play this way, because why wouldn't he?
There's
Exactly.
no repercussions. On that note, protect yourself from flying elbows by getting yourself into a Toyota. See Truba try and elbow a Toyota and watch that elbow shatter into a million pieces.
He's going to have weird growths on his, too.
If he tries to elbow a Toyota, yeah, I bet he definitely would. Go check out your local Front Range Toyota dealerships. Trucks have always been a part of their DNA. They have a bunch of different types for durable words out of my mouth. Built durable to last here in Colorado. And, our weather hasn't really been all that bad. It's not like where was Kansas the other day was going to get like baseball-sized hail.
Look, man, I just drove through a snowstorm. a snap blizzard-like conditions on Saturday. So I don't want to hear this.
Fair enough. That's why they have 17 four-wheel and all-wheel drive vehicles. For when the Colorado weather changes quickly, you can check out vehicles like the Toyota 4Runner if that's your style. Of course, they also have sedans, 2 and 16 different hybrid vehicles to choose from as well. Visit your Front Range Toyota stores at AutoNation Toyota Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson Toyota East in Aurora, and Stevenson Toyota West in Lakewood. Get yourself into the official vehicle of the Colorado Avalanche and the official vehicle of DNVR. And then take your Toyota on a little road trip down to Vegas. Come join us for the NHL draft and make sure you're staying at Circa Resorts and Casinos. The best place to stay. You can watch the NHL draft even at Circa. You know, going to the Sphere sounds pretty cool, but also being in the pool watching it on 90-foot television sounds pretty cool. So, tough choices.
Day 2.
There you go. Day two at Stadium Swim. That's the key. We figured it out now. Of course, you also have tons of other options, including a 7,000 square foot casino, a 3-story sports book, and much, much more when it comes to Circa. So go book your stay today at circasports.com and use code DNVR20 to get 20% off your stay anytime you head to Vegas with Circa. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche Podcast. We'll do the NHL stuff first here with the coaches.
Fun.
I don't know about fun, but as of today, this offseason, just this offseason, there have been 6 new coaching hires, and the San Jose Sharks are still without a head coach, so there will be a 7th coming very soon. I know the NHL coaching carousel is always turning. Does this feel exorbitant?
Yeah. It's a lot.
Why?
A lot of organizations expecting this change to be the thing that fixes them. I don't know. I don't get it. I'm at a loss. My only idea would be that the salary cap remained stagnant for so long that general managers
This
couldn't
is a thing they can change. Yeah.
could only do so much with a roster, and so then it would became great. Let's change out the coach.
Okay.
That's all I've got, and because otherwise, I just don't understand how there's this much turmoil in the coaching ranks at once.
Starting with Babcock last September,
Sure.
I think it's 12 coaching changes, which is an alarming number to me. And it makes me think of Jared Bednar's first year in Colorado and how if the organization had pulled the trigger on seeking a change so quickly, we wouldn't have seen a Stanley Cup in 2022. And Bednar talked about this in the Winnipeg series when he was asked by LeBrun. And he was just grateful that he had the opportunity to build a little bit of a foundation in Colorado. You know, it was kind of essential. And
Yep.
but he talked about how it's a league of results, and that can make front offices make quick decisions. So I'm curious, Eric, what you think about this. It seems like a difficult position for an organization to be in.
Here's what I'll say. Why would you get into coaching if you're friggin' married and have a young family? You are absolutely nuts. I'm being honest. Like, and that part of me, when I stopped playing, I wanted to get into that, and I did. I got in the coaching world with the Avs actually, and assistant coach, video job, and then it's like, okay, then you're like, where's this going? Like, I want to have kids and a family, and then you're moving from place to place to place. It takes a different type of family dynamics to do that. Now what I'll say is the good thing, I have a lot of great friends that are coaches now, they're getting paid a lot more than they used to, which is a great thing. You know what I mean? Because as we just saw, everyone's getting fired after a freaking year and a half. This is nuts. Like 2 years. It's crazy. You know what I mean? I think
28 coaches since
it's nuts.
February 2022.
So what I'll say is at least you're getting taken care of, like financially. You know what I mean? Like a lot more than back then. No, it still doesn't make it okay. It's still hard. It's still hard on the families.
Yep.
But I tell you, I mean, I've always felt that. I've always that it's a bad trend. You know what I mean? I like to stick things out. I like continuity. I like familiarity. I still believe you can have a bad year and still a freaking good year the next year. Shit happens. You know what I mean? So if I'm running a team, I would take the Joe approach a little bit like he did with Bednar. I agree with that. I thought it was awesome. Nowadays, I mean, I don't understand it's absolutely crazy. Like, first of all, if your roster sucks, your roster sucks. I don't care what coach you're going to have. Your margin of error is this big. You know what I mean? And, You
mean firing Brad Larson after...
But that's... Okay, I was
after a
Clutch,
year,
yeah.
And he had the second most man games lost to injury that year.
That's what I'm saying.
He was the problem.
That's what I mean. It's like, coaching is so many things. Yes, there's X's and O's, but you got to be a freaking babysitter. You do to 23 guys, and guys are. Some guys are freaking hard to handle. They are. You know what I mean? And some guys are easy. It's like anything else. Some of your kids are easy. Some kids are hard. If anybody has kids out there, everybody's different, and coaching is a lot has to do with that. And I think you're just getting to know the people, or you're just getting to know you guys, then you're fired, and then you start again. I think it's absolute nonsense. This trend is absolute nonsense for me. But here, it's become, just like the players, it's become more of a business, you know what I mean? Because the money's better. Guys get themselves, and I can attest to that, guys that get themselves ready, like Jersey. I mean, they did, they talked to Carl, and They did talk to Pando at BU, and, knowing that they're not ready. But if you're smart, I'll use Marco's term. If you're smart, you start a couple years from now, like, okay, I'll give you a real example. Like, who's got the best PK in the NHL? Oh, Boston Bruins. Who is that? Oh, Joe Sacco. Oh, let me get a hold of Joe Sacco and then form my own presentation. So when I do go get interviews, because it's all about the interviews now. It's all about the interviews. Guys come in there, they're so prepared, and they're so like, bang, 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 because it is a big investment for teams because they make so much more money. And then guys go in there, and they take a few years to get themselves ready. That doesn't mean that they're not entrenched in their own team. You know what I mean? I don't want people to think that. There's some assistant coaches in the NHL, they're going to become head coaches. That doesn't mean that, they don't want to be here. No, they just want to ascend in their profession, especially guys in the American League level. And then there's the retreads of coaches, as we know.
That's-
right? I mean, so there's a lot of different ones, right? You know, so
I want to get into that conversation, but first let's talk about the 6 guys that actually got hired. Dan Bylsma, the most recent one to
Disco
Seattle. Scott Arniel, Winnipeg's replacement for Bonus.
What are you doing?
Sheldon Keefe heading to New Jersey almost immediately after leaving the Leafs. The Leafs hiring Craig Berube. Ottawa picking up Travis Green, previously of New Jersey. And Buffalo running back Lindy Ruff 10 years later for reasons unknown.
God, you're running through this list, and I forgot how much of these hires I hated.
And that's my next question. Give me one you like. Give me one you don't like of those 6.
I like Berube.
Okay.
I like Berube. Just because they need... I just think they need a disciplinarian, a guy that's going to come in there and be a warrior and teach them how to be a warrior. I don't like Craig Berube. I don't think he's very good at X's and O's wise. I don't think it's great, but
okay.
he goes in there and that guy gets blood from a stone. And a guy like Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, there's a lot of blood, I guess. There's a big stone. This is turning into a really gruesome metaphor that I intend for. But like if he can't do it, you've tried everything with that core.
It's over. Yeah.
It's the wrong guys.
Sure.
It's the wrong mix. So I really like that one. I have no idea what Seattle's doing. If you were going to hire Dan Bylsma, just keep Dave Haxtell.
Same thing, different body.
Yeah, just keep him. I don't get it. I have all the respect in the world for Dan Bylsma winning a Stanley Cup and being willing to go back to the AHL.
To do the hard work.
And rebuild it, learn things, and try to give himself another opportunity someday. I have no idea what Seattle's doing. What are you trying to accomplish?
I actually like him a lot too as an AHL coach. What he's done with Coachella they're in the Western Conference Final right now. I saw what that team looked like against the Colorado Eagles last year, and this regular season record from this last year was something like 46-15-6. It's been an impressive run for him in Coachella. But I also liked Haxtell, and I feel like this was an example of them perhaps pulling the trigger too soon on Haxtell, because the year before, the team achieved success. They lose depth, and that's something that you have to coach around, and it can be challenging. But I think that the result that Seattle saw this year was the result of not having as strong a roster as the year before. And I get that, as a coach, that is in part your responsibility to work through and work around.
Did he get fired for overperforming in year 2? Is that it?
That's what's tough. Yeah, I feel like maybe they just moved on maybe a bit quickly. I don't necessarily dislike the decision that they go to. I actually really liked Haxtell as a coach. So excited for Bylsma and the opportunity, but also love the Berube call out. I think that he is a pretty simple structure guy who can add a little bit of old school to a team that I think could benefit from it. Now, whether or not they can actually play within a pretty rigid structure, I think will be up to them, but I think they could really benefit from it.
Arniel in Winnipeg, AJ's really excited about. But you look back when Bones was gone, right? Bonus was gone. Then the team seemed to have played well responded well to that. I mean, maybe that's what kind of gave Chevy the leeway of why he would do it. I mean, it is what it is, right? I mean, he's got some head coaching experience, right? In Columbus, and was it Columbus? Yeah, it was Columbus. I mean, he's been around forever, but now as far as Keefe, I mean, I don't know. Who knows? I mean, it was a weird thing in Toronto. Is it the coaching? Is it the core? Time will tell. I mean, but there was something wrong that was there the last 7-8 years, right? Obviously. As far as Chief there, I love him. You're talking about a guy that played Berube that played with an edge, but not the best player, but oh boy, like I used to be petrified of him. Like he was he was a menace. And then I met him at Keith Jones's wedding. I was sitting at the same table as him, and I was like, well, I'm becoming friends with him. Absolutely. So then the rest of my career, I was fine. Like, he didn't chase me around, so I felt pretty good. But I'll tell you one thing.
Made a business decision at a wedding?
Yeah, that was a business decision, Like, what would you like, sir? Do you want me to cut your steak? No problem. I'll sign your shoes, But he brings an authority, right? He's got an authority figure. He brings respect, and that's what he did. And he put the strap, the working boots on. He went to Philly, right? He was a legend. Philly came in same rookie year as Rick Tocchet. They were both young, and Berube like went back as an assistant coach there for years, and cut his way up. To obviously ended up in St. Louis, and then goes on that magical run. But there's a reason why you go on a magical run. He's a leader in his own way. You're right. Again, I haven't played for him. I've never been in a locker room with him. I don't know about his X's and O's, but this is a guy that would probably surround himself with smart people when it comes to that. And I'm not saying he's not smart. I'm saying he's smart, so smart that he'll surround himself with his weaknesses. But I'll tell you one thing that he's not weak at is personality. He brings respect. He brings personality. And I think the Toronto Maple Leafs need absolutely that. Now, as far as Disco Danny Bosma, I play with Disco, great guy, Mary Beth, his wife, and he was my driver for a couple months in Phoenix in the minors. He would pick me up at the apartment and go to practice. So, great person, great family man. Got his big break with, obviously Pittsburgh, and then he signs that big deal in Buffalo. It didn't go well in Buffalo. And again, that's kind of when salaries were turning, and I'm not saying it's okay to get fired, but at least he got paid financially, for going through all that stuff. And then he goes back to the American League because that's what Danny is. He's a character guy. He was a character player and not the most talented player, but worked hard, good team guy. And then he goes back and works his way in a good situation in Coachella. And, now he's back in the NHL. So good for him. As far as, it's a little similar to Axtell. You're right. Like I would say, they look the same a little bit in the way they do things, I don't know Axtell, but I know Danny. But yeah, so it's, Lindy Ruff. I think it's Kevin Adams is looking for something that nothing's worked there in freaking a gazillion years, right? So why go back to what worked back then, which was Lindy. And I know Lindy's a very smart hockey man. I can tell you that. Like Tommy Fitzgerald talks about him like to the highest level of coaching. You know what I mean? And I don't know him. I just played against him, and he's coach maybe playing too. I'm old, but and as far as San Jose, there it sounds like Marco Sturm might be the guy going in, which would be awesome. You know what I mean? I think he checks all the boxes. You talk about a great person. You're talking about a former Shark, so knows the area, knows what the good era of the Shark was. Been through a tough trade. With the Joe Thornton trade, if you remember, that was tough for him and Stewart, right? Because they were traded for Joe Thornton, and it's kind of like, holy crap. And then Joe became this, so I know that Marco can relate to guy, and obviously he's got, teenage son, and obviously American League the last few years, running his own ship, a national program, coach in Germany, European. So I think he checks a lot of boxes. I'm talking like he is the head coach of the San Jose Sharks. I'm hoping so because he's a good friend of mine, but I wouldn't know. I'm not announcing anything here. Like, this is not what I'm saying, but I'm saying if I'm Mike Greer, that's a guy I certainly look at. Absolutely. You know what I mean? And then who we're missing? Now, Columbus is missing, right? But they hired Waddell today, but they're going to be, I mean, is Pascal, my old sentiment, is he still there?
Yeah.
Again, I think the GM's going to...
Who knows what happens in the offseason.
Yeah. So you might see another one go here. I'm being honest, and again, cross your fingers because it's got to stop.
I would say, as you bring up Sturm, we can kind of transfer the next part of this conversation. We're talking about these 6 guys, all 6 of them retreads. Yeah. All 6 of them with previous NHL coaching experience.
So Sturmy is that a retread? No.
Sturm would not be. He'd be the odd one.
No, he was assistant coach in LA, but so okay, we're on the same page.
This is coaching cycle. That was my main takeaway, is that it lacked imagination. It was like, there are lots of good coaches out there that you could have a conversation. Oh, bring in this guy, bring in that, whatever. And the guys that ended up getting jobs, I'm just...
Why?
How the hell did Travis Green get another job?
Don't know.
He was so bad in Vancouver. It was really bad in Vancouver, and I just don't understand. And it's the same thing with the Jets. I think the Jets, Kevin Cheveldayoff always lacks imagination. Always. You can always rely on Chevy to lack imagination. He is going to do the safest thing that he can so he could sell it to Mark Chipman, make it make sense. It's very easy, and he just keeps his job forever. They've accomplished dick all with him running that franchise, and yet it's all good, man. It's just all good. And now you get Arneal in there, and he's going to try and do the same thing that Bones did. Great. You got the shit kicked out of you in the postseason. Is that where it's going to change for him?
But with more analytics, AJ.
Well, I agree with you because I know what you're thinking right now because I know you enough.
Yeah.
You're thinking about Buc-ee's right now. I know. Okay,
well, that's always true, man.
And
I knew that. No, you're thinking right now of, I'm kidding, but you're thinking of New York Islanders, right? Bear Trotz. Lane Lambert takes over.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Are we talking the same thing? I agree. For me, I was like, oh, that's not going to work. It's going to be the same thing, right? I don't care that you're going to say, hey, I got to put in my own stuff and everything, but a lot of time it's like the same stuff, right? And what I want to add to that is about, like, for example, Travis Green, I know him a little bit, great guy, but Steve Stais, look back. There might be a connection there. I don't remember. I don't know. There's got to be. Because here's what I'll say in management, and I say it again, and I think here in Colorado we have that continuity between Joe Seamack and Bednar. There's a big difference, because there's you get along, and it's important. And I think we forget that sometimes. Like, there's got to be a certain level of, God, what can I say? Like being comfortable with. So there is a seamless transition from upstairs to the bench to the players. And I think that a lot of times that's why you see familiarity. You know what I mean? So wherever this GM goes, well, he brings that coach. And you know what I mean? And there's always a connection because you feel comfortable and you can't discard that.
Comfortability doesn't win championships, though.
Well, it does.
It's safe as death.
What's that?
I said safe as death.
Oh, buddy.
Kevin Cheveldayoff's nickname should be safe as death.
I'm not telling you that's what I would do. I'm telling you that's what gets done, right?
That's what I'm just saying.
I agree. No. Hey, listen. Hey, huge compliment. I mean, again, here, do the math. Everything's been done here the last 25 years. So you hire a coach that's never coached anything, and I mean, hired former coaches and retreads or new guys. I mean, it's
in Colorado
everything.
though, the only retread coach that has been hired, the only one was Tony Granato,
retreading their own,
and they were the only one to give him that job. Otherwise, every single head coach in Avalanche history has been a new guy.
Well, Joel came back though. Joel came back.
I forget about the second tenure.
Well,
you're right. I forget about the second tenure.
And outside of Granato, and honestly, even Granato, I mean, they all turned out pretty decent for non-retread head coaches.
Oh, absolutely.
It's crazy that an organization has largely built itself, has 3 championships with 3 different head coaches, and has largely built itself on hiring guys who have not coached in the NHL before.
I'll speak for my dad here. Okay, we're talking about this. Why not?
I would love this perspective.
My dad was like, he was big on. He didn't like, first of all, firing people. That is, that is the toughest. I don't know if you've ever been in that position. It's freaking tough. It's tough. So, but he went with Mark Crawford the first time around. Why? Freaking Crow just turned 30. Had been coaching in the American League for 3 years now. And then in the OHL in Cornwall, and it's like a no-name. No one knew. And it was like, what the hell is that? I won the Jack Adams the first year. You're right. And then he wins the Stanley Cup here in 96. And then, stuff happens. And, and then all of a sudden, it's Bob Hartley. The guy that's been coaching 20 years, right? From all the junior ranks in Canada to, to the juniors to American League. And Bob's won everywhere. Maybe not the most polished guy, but then let's take Brian Trottier, put him next to him. Then he gets that, the Hall of Fame mentality next to him, and here's how you build that staff. And every time it was about what do we need today if we're changing the path of our coaching. And then all of a sudden, he decided that Bob needed to be, for all the reasons, you know what I mean? We're all good friends still nowadays, as we know Bob came on the show. I mean, it's not it, but Tony Granato was what was needed because it was that personality that was needed, you know what I mean? And Tony comes in, he's I think he's like 50-8 the last 58 games. So it's absolutely absurd. Forsberg wins the freaking what? He wins the MVP. Hedgie wins the Rocket.
Yeah.
And again, we falter in the playoffs in the first round. But, Tony was what was needed. Now, for his development, for his coaching development, was that the best way to do it? Probably not. It's an unbelievable, thing in front of you that my dad gave him. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, that's not the best. And then my dad had to go back to Tony and say, hey, Joel Quenneville, we have the opportunity to bring him back. I want you to learn under him, and then we're going to put you back as assistant coach. And then Pierre's gone after that, and then Francois, and then what's his name? Joel gets fired, and then Tony gets brought back. Okay, now you're ready. It didn't work out, but I don't mind when you have balls. You're right. Maybe you're saying Chevy's personality is it's absolutely that. He's a nice man, and I don't think he's ballsy, but I like ballsy hires. I do, because I think it's awesome. I'm not, but then I also like good coaches coming back and, getting opportunities. But you're right. Sometimes it gets old with the retreads. I'm gonna side with you on that.
I think this is easy as Colorado, and I want to go to Megan on this because I know she had a good relationship with Greg Cronin. But not just Cronin. There are 3 coaches in the NHL that got there by the Avalanche organization. Patrick Waugh, obviously a pretty easy one for the Avs to put head coach given the other connections. Bednar himself, who's still in Colorado. And then Greg Cronin, who came to the Eagles and basically re-energized his career to now get that job that he has in Anaheim. It's a copycat league. The Avs won the Cup recently. Should more teams be pushing for these zero NHL experience head coaches?
I think it's interesting because Cronin's in Belsmut territory in that he was behind an NHL bench, didn't quite work out. He needed to go through some changes of his own, and he was committed to making those changes, and I think that's the difference maker for a guy like him, especially adopting a different coaching style and getting a head coaching job in the American League to really lean into that. But I'm all for it. I know David Carl's name has come up in the chat a lot as an intriguing option that has 0 NHL experience. And I think what makes it tough is Eric's earlier point about, a guy with a young family.
Yep.
That's what I'm not Carl. I can't speak on his behalf, but he has a really sweet deal in Denver.
Man.
And, he's coaching a winning organization program, and I think you'd have to really come to him with the right offer to tempt him to leave. So I don't know what it comes down to. I'm all for giving you guys chances. I'm thinking of the coach out of the Calgary organization. Is it Mitch Love? I think he's a guy that I think is due that type of opportunity. I'm all for it, especially because you see at the American League level, you can get to know the coaches a little bit better and see the NHL fit a lot of the time.
Here's what I'll say too is people want winners. So for whoever on the chat that's older, and you young puppies here that were just probably not born yet, but 96 they win the Cup.
I was very much born in 96.
I was alive.
How old do you think I am?
I don't know, 19.
Oh my God.
So you go
if
back
you're
to
33, I guess he'd be about 19.
Oh, no, I'm
that
41.
adds up.
I'm 41. So if you go back to 96, what happens? They win the Cup. Who leaves? Assistant coach at Colorado Avalanche, Jacques Martin, right? Goes to Ottawa. Keep going. The year after, who wants a winner? St. Louis Blues. They take Joel Quenneville, assistant coach, Colorado Avalanche. People want freaking winners. You know what I mean? And over the years, that's kind of what's happened with the Avalanche. You know what I mean? It's like Cronin, all right, part of the American League Cup run and all that stuff. You want winners. You want to go after guys that have, Brian Trottier. Sorry, I missed him. 2001 becomes head coach of the New York Rangers. Is that the right pick? Probably not. But he's still a freaking assistant coach with the Avalanche. I win the Stanley Cup. And then the people want winners. And that's kind of...
You think that was part of the appeal with Jared Bednar, too?
ECHL and AHL
ECHL championship,
100%.
coming
Bob
right
Hartley.
off an AHL championship.
Bob Hartley. Same thing. They win at every level. Now, I'll speak for David Carl. Why would you do that? Why would you go in that carousel of craziness when it's hard to manage? Now, you can say, okay, the money. You make a lot more money in the NHL. Yeah, but then you have to go, and I'm not saying man, they're all good coaches and they all get canned at some point. It is what it is. You know what I mean? So David Quinn, assistant coach at BU forever with Jackie Parker. Jackie Parker's about to leave. Oh my God. But I want to try my stuff with pro. Jumps with us in the American League. Where? In Cleveland, right? He's there for a few years. Now, we bring him on with the Avalanche. Next thing you know, I'm going back to college. He gets the head coaching job at BU. Jackie Parker's now gone. Next thing you know, New York Rangers come calling. It's the New York Rangers. A lot of money. Okay, I'm going back to pro. You know what I mean? Now you go a couple years, boom. Now you go to San Jose, a couple years, boom. I mean, now you're like, You got compensated for it, right? But then it's like, maybe I should have stayed at BU. I don't know. And I don't know what's next for Quinny. But I'm saying is the pro game is different. College game, if you want to stay somewhere for 10, 15 years, I mean, you can. And a good quality of life. And then the NHL will always be there. David Carl's going to coach in the NHL one day. It's just going to be up to him when he wants to make that jump to the crazy boat. When
Yeah.
it's crazy,
I believe
like
that.
the crazy.
We're talking about the coach meat grinder here,
Yeah. Oh
and,
my
and the
God.
turnover is outrageous right now.
nuts, man.
Why would you leave the stability at DU? DU is a premier college program.
And he can coach there
It's-
for the rest of his life with
It's
no
not like he's
repercussions.
coaching Wisconsin, which is like the program is fine. He's coaching at Denver, a place that he has history,
Yep.
but he also has championships, and he has all the job security he's ever going to want.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's sentimental value. He has a really young family. He's a
Yes.
family guy, and he's good at what he does. So I think, to Eric's point, I think he'll make that jump one day. He just needs to be sure of where he's going to land.
It's like 10 years from now, could he get bored if they win 3 or 4 more championships? Yeah.
Maybe.
When
He could just be like, all right, now I want a different challenge.
His kids grow up
Yeah,
a little
the day
bit.
those kids
Yeah.
turn 18.
That's going to be so funny if that happens. The day his kids turn 18, he's like, I'm accepting an NHL job.
You know, gone. But it's like,
No,
it's
they're
funny
going to go to
because-
DU, and he's going to coach them at DU. And then when they graduate from DU, then
All right,
he'll go
which
to the
team
pro.
drafted my kid when I'm going there?
what you've seen the last couple of years, though, is funny because they want to make sure they don't leave any stones unturned, right? You know,
Yep.
It seems like presidents and GMs are, okay, we have to go with the rethread. We have to go, I'm talking about looking at. We have to go look at, the college guy that's not ready. I think Fitzy was really open, said it that he did talk to David Carl, and he did talk. And that doesn't mean David Carl wants to leave DU. I mean, that's just, it's part of the process of going through the interview process if you're a coach. And I think, look at Anaheim last year. They end up getting one of our favorites, right? Cronin. We all love him. And again, man, Crow's not
They
20
interviewed like 15 people for
but
that
that's what
job.
I mean.
Like,
So they went around. They did around, and Joe was there. Sacco, he was one of them. I mean, they look around and they're like, "What is the type we're looking for?" And then I think you get 2 or 3 of each types, and then you're like, "Okay, no, we want to go with the guy that's been in the minors for a long time, that's got some NHL experience as an assistant coach, but that's really ready now for our young guys, and that's really a good communicator." And then that's why Cronin gets the job, right? You know what I mean? And whoever was in the finals with him. Jokes, but whatever. There was a couple guys, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean. And then all of a sudden, it's usually the same types that are in the final stages because you've decided that that's the type of guy you want.
Well, anything else to add?
And then you
before I
fire them
do a
again
jump?
a
Okay.
year later.
No, it just, Cronin was interviewing for that Boston job, and it went
Yep.
to Monty,
Yep.
a guy who made the leap, college hockey into the pros, experienced some adversity, finally gets there. I think it all worked out the way it was supposed to. They landed in their respective places that both were meant to be NHL head coaches, both found their path to that end destination.
Yeah.
And I'm happy for them both.
Well-
And at some point, they will both be fired.
Because that's what NHL head
AJ,
coaches do.
Go back to thinking about elbows.
It's just how it is, though.
It's true.
Bednar's going to get fired someday. John Cooper's going to get fired someday. They might dress it up as mutually parting ways or some bullshit. The end of the road is always coming for coaches.
100%.
Don't let that happen to your roof. I know there's some conversation about
Hell yeah.
wanting to get a new inexperienced head
Nailed
coach.
it.
No, when it comes to roofing, go with the experience. Red Hawk Roofing. Get with Red Hawk. They're a local Colorado company. You can go to redhawkroofing.com anytime to get a free inspection. It costs you nothing. They'll come out. They'll look at your roof. They'll get up there. They'll take pictures. They'll tell you what's going on up there. Everything might be fine, or there might be problems. I don't know. I'm not a roofer. Ask them. Go get with them for that at very least. And even if you don't do that, they are available 24/7. So you can contact them at any time to get a hold of them and to make sure your roof can get put into the shape that it needs to be so it's not raining inside. That's bad. Don't let it rain inside. Get with Red Hawk Roofing today. And once your roof's taken care of, you can go celebrate with Raising Cane's. Go get yourself some delicious chicken fingers, handmade, hand-battered, cooked to order when it comes to Raising Cane's. And really, let's be honest, we all go there for the sauce.
Yep.
Do it for the sauce. Go get Raising Cane's. Delicious
Two sauce,
sauce.
no coleslaw.
Bang. That's
Two
the order.
breads.
That's the order right there. Eric's got it on lock. He knows what's up.
Texas toast rules.
Texas
Sick.
toast is,
I will hear
is
no
sick as
slander.
well.
Unreal.
Go get yourself some when it comes to Raising Cane's. You can find your local Raising Cane's location online, or you can even order on mobile if you want to order beforehand and come pick up when you get there, so you don't have to waste any time. For cooks to order hand-battered chicken fingers, race into Raising Cane's, turbocharge your chicken fingers, and get them even faster by using that online ordering at raisingcanes.com or through their mobile app. Raising Cane's chicken fingers, one love. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. Czechia takes the gold medal in the World Championships this year. The World Championships is an interesting competition.
Okay, just before we get into it, can I ask, how much of the World Championships did any of us watch?
I watched the gold medal game.
0, 0, 0. That's what it means.
And
Well, I have like $0, so I don't know where I was going to watch it. Sorry.
Okay.
There are financial limitations that make watching hockey hard sometimes.
it do be like that. But this is the conversation I want to get into, because on one hand, you see the reception the Czech players get when they come home to that country, and the whole country's there to welcome them home, and they're all losing their minds.
Similar to Sweden a few years ago when they got back, and it was a huge party.
So it certainly seems like it's a big deal globally outside of North America.
Elsewhere.
But we watch Canadian and American, the top players are either playing in the playoffs or regularly turned down going. Do we care, especially given now that the NHL is planning their own global tournament coming up this next season, and the hope that the Olympics might actually be back for real in 2026? Would you like to see the World Championships become bigger in North America, or will it just get replaced?
For me, the reason why I have never cared about World Championships is because it's not best on best. You are subject to guys dropping into the middle of the tournament based on how their NHL teams do.
Pasta.
You've got guys that are injured and are trying to rehab for the start of the next NHL season. It's an afterthought to a lot of those guys too. And that's how it became an afterthought for me, is because I love that Czechia won it. I love when one of these countries that is not Canada or the United States wins a tournament like that, because their country goes crazy.
It's way cooler that way.
They care
for
about
sure.
it in a different way than I ever will. I just don't care that much about it. And I'm never going to. The Olympics, I will care a lot about. This whatever tournament that the NHL is starting next year, the World Cup wannabe, I won't care about either, because it's not big enough. Because it excludes too many good countries. So it's really, for me, I'm like, it's the Olympics. It's WJCs.
Okay.
Those are the things that I care about.
The real Olympics, not the fake AHL
Exactly.
Olympics.
Not the Spengler Cup 2.0.
Yeah.
None of that stuff. I don't care about that either. It's just, it's not a serious enough tournament at this point for me to care about it. And that's not to take away from when a country like Czechia wins. I think that's great. Party all day with it. Winning is hard. But I'm just not going to care about it.
I think, to Adria's point, it is weighted differently in my eyes compared to other tournaments that I do tune in to watch. But it carries some value to me for a player like Lucas Dostal, who has a difficult situation in Anaheim, right? Like, he's kind of working to get the starter's net against Gibson, a veteran goaltender, and in the back half of that year, there are some really horrible games for Anaheim on a whole. And he's just trying to play with some pride and, build up to that starting position. And he gets to have a great tournament, posts a 31 save shutout to help his team win the gold medal. And I look forward to those moments. Like, that's where I see the value in a tournament like this, is an NHL hopeful on the rise like that, needing extended opportunity away from his NHL team that's in a difficult phase right now. You know, Anaheim's building. They're not quite there yet. And I think it's exciting for a player like that. And there's NHL caliber names on all of these rosters. Like, even in the bronze medal game, there's still NHL talent represented there. It's not in excess. There maybe isn't an abundance of it, but it's something that I think, you know, the Czech team should wear with pride, and Lucas Dostal should wear with pride.
I love that point, because back before I did this professionally, you know, when I cared about the World Championships, I guess World Championships, not World Cup, when the Avs were bad. Back in 16-17, when the Avs had a terrible season and they sent like 5 dudes to the World Championships, and you got to watch Mikko Rantanen be really good against decent competition, you're like, oh, all right, so maybe the Avs don't suck all the way, all the time.
Oh, and you got a really fun gif of Nathan McKinnon, Ryan O'Reilly, and Tyson Barrie dancing after they won the gold medal.
Yeah.
Neat.
But I think that's the hard reality of that situation is, yeah, that tournament matters for some players and by that extent some teams, but it is pretty hard secondary to the NHL, as opposed to something like the Olympics, which I think a lot of people would argue supersedes the NHL in level of importance.
Olympics right there, 100%. And guys miss it. Guys want to go. McDavid chomping at the bit, right? Never been. It was weird for us back then, because I remember the freaking first one. Of course, I didn't get picked, but it was like, what? You got 3 weeks off? What do you mean? We're going to Cabo? Middle of the season? What's going on here? This is the craziest thing in the world, right? I mean, it was like, was nuts.
Did you stay in a resort that was $20,000?
Yeah. Yeah, you crazy guy. That was nuts. Anyway, Olympics is huge. And then World Cup, I'll tell you what, World Cup, we'll go watch that one, 96. Holy cannoli when USA beats Canada. That was awesome. So I see a little bit of that coming up next year with that World Cup there. You'll want to watch that one, trust me. And then World Championship, yeah, I mean, I can't get excited for it, and for many reasons. Yes, it's great for Czechia, and, you know, it comes from the World Cup, a little bit of soccer, and, you know what I mean, like, it's a European thing, and it's big. I've never heard of a guy in Canada growing up say, oh my God, I want to win the World Championship, you know, or in U.S. I've never heard of that. Guys are like, oh, we want to win the Stanley Cup, but, you know what I mean, that's what they do. I'm not saying that the Stanley Cup's not important for Europeans. I'm saying is they have that culture there of the World Cup of soccer, and that's what that is. Now, those guys have no idea that they're celebrating yesterday, that Czechia won, that guys are still playing in the freaking NHL playoffs right now. Their country won. It's awesome, and that's good for them. But I'm not going to name names. There's a lot of NHL coaches, when they take over jobs, and that's the first thing they say. Oh, we're not sending anyone next year to the Losers Championship.
Yikes.
Yikes, because that's what that is. You just said it. That means your team sucked, and you can send a bunch of guys because you're not in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And that's what that tournament, for me, and I've seen playing and in management, guys hide, and hockey players are so nice, and they can't say no, and then you're like, please don't call me, please don't call me, please don't call me. You know what I mean? Because it's been a long year, and some guys had personal issues or whatever it was. Like, I don't know, you had a new baby, or weird stuff can happen, or injuries, and then you're like, you feel guilty of going there. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, please don't call me. You know what I mean? And it's like, then they call you, and then as management, you're like, oh God, it would have been nice if you could have taken a month off, and you know what I mean, like not gone, and then it's a lot of hockey to be played here coming up with the, like you said, the Olympics, the World Cup. I mean, may God, World Championships, like, it is what it is. Good on Czechia to have won it, but I don't think anyone's losing sleep that they lost the World Championship.
Yeah.
Last question about it, and then we'll wrap up here. Would it help if you moved it? Play it in September.
Yes. The timing is also a reason I don't care about
it
it.
would be the World Cup, like,
because I'm exhausted at the end of the year.
I know, but
I can
all.
barely watch the conference semifinals right now. I guess the conference finals. I can barely watch that stuff right now. I'm tired. We've covered a team for 8 months. I'm not watching World Championships.
and it's revenue, and it's for the IHL. It's
I understand.
There's a lot of stuff into it. I just know because I've seen guys over there. I mean, the level of preparation like of teams before games. I got to be honest with you. Like it was in Quebec City like a few years back. Oh my God, buddy! Like really? And you're like, you gotta go play a game tomorrow? Really? Like honestly, like it's not the level of seriousness is not there. But you're right. If you move it to September, which it will never happen because of the, like I was saying, the IIHF. Again, I'm not a freaking technical guy and lawyer and all that stuff. But then you move that, then it would become the World Cup that we just talked about. I mean, because then you get the best on best.
I don't really
right?
care what it's called.
No, I'm just saying it would be better. Yeah, because it would be the best players.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
If it's
that's
not,
what I'm trying to say.
If it's not attempting to be a best on best international tournament, it's not a serious tournament.
I'm with you. So
Situation is what it is.
yeah.
Anyway, if you want to go watch the best rugby in Colorado, make sure you get out to Infinity Park and the American Raptors. You can also follow the DNVR Rugby Podcast with Colton Strickler, who does amazing work. All of his podcasts are awesome. If you've never checked them out, you got to go listen to him interview everybody in the rugby scene. He even has 101 pods if you're new to the sport. So go check that out on the American Raptors side. You can catch their games on ESPN Plus, and of course at the park when they are playing at home. They do play in a South American league though, so they do have pretty long road trips. I gotta tell you, they're gone for a long time, but still the best.
Sure, but Detroit had to move to the Eastern Conference because it was too many miles.
Still the best rugby in Colorado. Go give it a check out at Infinity Park, where you can get tickets for just $10. And then if you want to go play some sports yourself, hit up Volo Sports. You can download their app today, get the Volo Pass, and use code DNVR3 to get $10 off for your first 3 months of the Volo Pass, which gives you unlimited access to all drop-ins, pickups, and even some tournaments with Volo. They play all sorts of sports, from bowling to basketball to flag football to volleyball to pickup, whatever, flip cup, you name it. They play it all with Volo. So go join the biggest sports social company in the country. The Volo Pass even gets you access in other cities. So if you travel a lot and you go to other cities, you can do drop-in sports out there wherever you're going to. It's a great way to socialize and make new friends and do all that good stuff. So again, download that Volo app today and use code DNVR3 to get $10 off your first 3 months of the Volo Pass. Yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up today's show, unless anyone has any other thoughts they wanted to jump in on.
Yeah, I know I've been losing weight and I look great. And there's a great temptation to, but please don't sexualize any of the people on our show.
Honestly, that should just be ban-worthy material. TBH.
Just saying.
Beyond that, we will have a show tomorrow, which will include us talking about the remainder of the NHL playoffs, and maybe more accurately, what can the Avs learn from the 4 teams that are still in it. So you have that to look forward to tomorrow. Tonight, I'm dropping a video on the Avs cap situation, so if you want an overview of what money the Avs have this offseason, make sure you keep it locked here to the YouTube channel. Also, keep an eye out for some more Die Hard content coming this week.
Should be tomorrow.
There you go. Wednesday. Easy life. We are going to get out of here for today, though. We appreciate all y'all hanging out, and we will be back tomorrow.
We all silly like the mayor.